What's up, everyone? My name's Connor. Appreciate you guys coming to watch this video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys a pretty competitive Kristyasworn deck profile. For those of you who are watching this video as their next video on my channel that they watch, appreciate you guys watching the old videos, of course. Shout out to Emporium TCG for hosting these Edison tournaments that we've been going to in Chicago here. You can locate them at 3351 North Harlem Avenue. That being said, I am going to go into a little bit of an in-depth profile. This is going to be a little bit more competitive than the last profile that I've shown, which is my pure Lightsworn list. This is going to be essentially a tournament-ready Kristyasworn deck profile. So that being said, I'm going to go into the cards and give you guys a little bit of an explanation on each of these cards. Not too long, but just enough to give you guys the gist of everything. So starting off, we're going to start with the Fairies. We have 3 Archlord Kristya. This is going to be the main boss monster in this deck, and accompanying Judgment Dragon, of course. Part of the reason that this deck's a little bit stronger and a lot more competitive than the other version is due to this card. What this allows you to do is, a lot of the times when you're playing just a pure list, Judgment Dragon alone or multiple JDs alone aren't going to win you the game due to cards like Gores, Necro Gardener, and Graveyard, maybe some other niche cards as well. So just being able to play this card alongside like JD, or just this card and JD alone essentially is going to lock them out of those hand trap cards and win you the game. Not to mention it being a +1 when it summons to recycle Honest, looping this card in addition with another copy, continuously having 4 Fairies engraved to shut them out of the game. This is single-handedly like one of the best boss monsters in the format. Definitely very good. The next fairy monster, of course, as you may have just seen, was Honest. 2 of course, this card's broken. You know what that card does, right? Next we have 3 Herald of Orange Light. These are the hand trap fairy monsters. That's what makes this deck very good, is because it gives this deck extra layers of protection that the other list doesn't have, or that other decks in the format don't have in general, right? So this is going to be a quick effect. This can activate in the damage step even. This can negate almost anything in the format. The only way to get through this card is to either trap Dusher or play through it. There is no other card in the format that can stop this card other than Orange Light itself, right? In addition to that, it's a tuner monster, so it can get you 4 Fairies engraved by going synchro plays with another level 4, discarding cards with Brionic to make Kristy alive while getting this engraved from the synchro summon, as well as this plus discarding another fairy to get you 2 engraved to fulfill the 4 fairy win condition that you need, or 4 fairy summon condition for Kristy that you need. Next, we have these 4 Lightsworn monsters. This list cut down on Jane. He is just gone for the time being. He's just a little bit of a subpar card, although he is a little bit necessary because of the name. We're just playing a little bit of the better names that mill the higher cost or the higher counts in this deck. That way we can kind of make sure that we're getting the cards we need in the graveyard, because this list is very heavily graveyard dependent rather than milling dependent in a way, I guess, if that makes sense. Of course, milling's important, but
you need a little more control in this variant.
Exactly. You need to definitely regulate what you're doing. So just give, again, a brief explanation. We know what Lumina does. Geralt, he's more of a preference card. I'm a big fan of him. Arcus is the unsung hero of this deck, being able to normal summon him, and then they can't interact with him with targeting cards. So that's even like Treeborn Frog, enemy controller plays in the standby phase, getting around. Even soul exchanges. I know those are like very random cards to bring up, but those are actually very important to take note of, as well as Caius too, cannot just target him. Raikou as well, so even when you know they have normal summon Raikou, this actually is a weird way to get out of that, where you can just swing right into it. You don't have to fear losing your guy. It feels very powerful when you do that. As well as 1800 defense. So
sideboard.
Oh yeah, plus the sideboard mentioned. This guy becomes even stronger in the sideboard cards. Like when they start siding things in on you guys, he becomes even better because they can't target your guys, right? So a lot of those sideboards options, like such as DD Crows and things when he's up, cannot target your monsters with that. So he's going to become very strong in the games 2 and 3. And
Soul Release has gotten a little more popular now too.
Yeah, absolutely. People are side decking like a lot of times, at least in these like big long tournaments or the highly competitive tournaments. They are playing like 1 minimum copies. I see them playing always 1. Just so they sure they don't break on it. But I even seen a list, if I'm not mistaken, main deck that card the other day, which is pretty scary to think about.
I think it was a Kristyasworn deck.
Actually. It was actually. It was a fairy list. Just didn't want to be like, I wasn't too sure, but yeah. And then of course Erin, she's just nice. Milling 3, as well as just putting those floater monsters back into the deck, such as zombies or other recruiter monsters. Pyramid Turtle, Mystic Turtle, or Mystic Tomato, Shining Angel, any type of those other monsters. X-Saber, Emmer's Blade, of course, Giant Rat in the X-Saber deck. Those all go spun back to the deck with her effect, and then no damage occurs. You can even do things like with her plus Honest to get 4 fairies in the grave and spin their monster back. Because you can activate them in different steps of the damage. So that's a little weird interaction. Next, we are on the triple Lila now. Of course, you guys know this. Well, since my last list, we were playing 3 of that I posted. This is because this card just mills 3 cards and it pops back row. So it does clear the back row for monsters. And it's just all around a threat, right? This is one of the more threatening monsters that the deck has. It just summons itself. If it pops back row, you can be safe with this card where you can just kind of like normal it. They think that you're going to be aggressive with it, and you don't really have to. You can just not swing, actually. Change the defense mode, pop their back row, mill 3, because you know that you're not going to die. Like, do you have Orange Light or Gores in hand? Or just you can synchro with that after you just normal summon pop it, right? Because you have Plague that you're going to be playing. So, this card, of course, is just nice. This could be, like, in theory, one of the more cuttable cards. That was this 3rd copy. For cards that we can, I guess, bring up, or that I brought up earlier, such as the Jane for an additional name, or the Hamster card, which we have been becoming a big fan of, because Hamster allows you to summon this card better too, which is funny because the more we played this deck, we went from like, oh, should this card be at 1 copy, and Hamster at 0, or Hamster at a 1 or 2. See, we've actually started to want to max out on, well, this card maxes at 2 anyways in this list. But this card is just single-handedly one of the more broken cards in this deck. I gave you guys a pretty good explanation in the last video about how good this card is, so I won't too much longer about it. But you guys get the idea of like how good it is to go set Raikou, Hamster lives, flip Raikou, pop now. Tribute for Celestia, you pop 3 cards, like, of course, crazy. Hamster, of course, also, like we mentioned, we'll actually talk about more him later, but 2 Judgment Dragon, to play this alongside your Krystia. That's the other boss monster in the deck. Of course, we know how strong he is. Grab him back with Beckonings and etc. Next, we have the 3 Raikous. And then the next guy that's really great with him is the double Hamster. So this is mainly the really broken guy. So we actually wanted to contemplate putting this guy up to 3, because this is like honestly one of the best starters in the deck. You can go flip or set him, right? Get your Raikou, and then you could sack both those for Krystia, which like people don't even know you can normal summon that card. Which, you know, you should see the look on people's faces when you hard summon it. After you go, like, they attack into him, he lives, you set Raikou on your turn, flip Raikou, pop a back row, and then tribute both for Krystia. They're kind of, like, stunned because you kind of just cleared the way for free. Like, they did it all on their own right there for you. Like, and you didn't have to do anything besides just flip someone, you know. He could honestly become a 3 card, the 3 of card. It's just that you have to get to the point of, like, you know, like, one thing I realized when I started playing these Lightsworn decks, like especially in like tournaments and stuff, is it's coming down to like the ratios. Like, I mean, much like every other deck, but it's like which card are you going to be okay with milling a lot, and which card are you going to be okay playing 3 copies of, because that's what it's going to be when you play 3 copies in this deck. Not only are you going to draw it a lot of the times, but you're also going to mill it a lot of the times too. You know, it's not just seeing cards in hand, it's about what you're going to see in grave too. So that's where I'm kind of hesitant to play the 3, because you know what? It's nice to see him, but how much am I going to like milling 2 to 3 of him when I did need the names? So that's where I'm kind of at that card. But he is really important, though. He's definitely one of the more important pieces of the deck. And then, of course, we have Gorf. He's the best. Card Trooper, this guy is just great. The fact that he's not a fairy lets him get you a draw. Plague Spreader Zombie, he's very nice. Of course, we know what he does. No Necro Gardener, unfortunately. I'm a big fan of that card. For some reason, I always find it like coming in and out of my list here in this version, because it protects Krystia from being battled with. So that way you can grab like Orange Light from grave instead. It's just that like you have to mitigate the amount of bricks that you have. That's what's harder about this list, or like these decks in general, is like, again, the ratios and stuff. You know, you have to make sure that you have the right cards, and it's which one would you rather brick on, and how many cards would you rather brick on, right? I mean, I'd rather see him, because at least you can normal him and he becomes a tuner, and then you get 2 uses out of him. Versus Necro Gardener, he's like he'd literally be probably the worst normal summon. Next, moving on to the Speller Traps, that's 28 monsters there. We have Charge the Light Brigade, of course. We have one of my favorite Lightsworn cards. We got Triple Solar Recharge. This card's awesome, of course. We have Double Gold Sark. This card's different from the last list. That I keep referencing, but this card just allows you to get your combo pieces better. In this deck, you know, being able to grab your boss monsters or fix your hands, where if like you do have the Krystia or the JD to grab Charge the Light Brigade, or either alternate, you know, rotating card. in order to get your cards live, your win conditions live, right? So a lot of times I find myself just gold starting for JD, just because that is like the safest single, like most powerful option in the deck, of course. But grabbing Charge of the Light Brigade or Solar Recharge is never a bad thing. Those are cards that are going to allow you to start playing the game, and that's what this card kind of does, right? It either allows you to start playing the game. One thing that's also important about this card is getting the card in 2 turns, which I'm gonna show you in a bit why that's gonna be important. Next we have the Brain Control. Of course, this card is obligatory. It's just great. Best card in the format, right? Double Beckoning Light. This card's awesome, even better in this list than the previous lists before, because now in this one you're gonna be like discarding your hand and grabbing things back is gonna be more important than ever. Just because now you're going to be discarding and fixing the amount of fairies you have. If you notice, I am not playing Soul of Purity and Light. I had really bad experiences with that card, and after playing this deck for like at least a couple weeks now, I realized that there's no reason to play Soul of Purity and Light. At least I haven't had the reason. Yeah, it plays through back row better, but I have no problem playing through back row, right? Like I have like all main decked in-engine arch type cards that out my back row for me. Just those cards all seem like dead cards in hand, or bricks, and just getting orange lights, fixing the fairies. That's mainly what this for is. This helps you resolve Christy, in my opinion. Next we have the one called the Haunted. This card's awesome. I always want to cut this card, but then I always I've never actually convinced myself to cut it. I've cut many other cards, but this card I always like see the merit in it, and that's why it's never actually come out as much as I complain about it, is because this is in fact like a win button type of card. Where you can just like pitch orange light, bring back Christia, and it's just like, all right, good game. Like, or just like for the matter of fact of like several things it can do. Bring back Lumina, bring back a tribute fodder for Celestia, bring back a monster to synchro with, bring back Lila to pop a back row where you haven't committed to your normal summons still. The only thing that does suck is you do play Gores, so sometimes depending on what you do with the monster, it will get stuck on board. That is just kind of one of the only caveats though to that card. And then next, this is one of my favorite cards in the deck recently, actually. This is also a recent addition, but this card's been overperforming for me. This is triple Reckless GED. This card is awesome. I guess like last time I had triple Pot of Avarice, now I got triple Reckless GED. This card, it just gets you 2 cards over the course of 1 turn versus getting 2 cards at once versus over the course of 2 turns is a lot more powerful in this format than just drawing, especially when you're resolving multiples of this cards. Right, because let's say you do gold Sark and you set your monster. Now you can keep your Reckless GED in hand. Knowing when to resolve this card is very important, of course. But going all right, your turn comes around where you're gonna resolve your gold Sark now, drawing for turn, getting your gold Sark, resolving 1 to 2 copies of this, putting you ahead where you have JD in hand. You resolve your Nibble Hamster. You can go tribute Celestia, JD, you know what I mean, and now you just combo off and they die. So that's what this card helps you do. And then not to mention this card drawing into multiple copies of itself, and then you might be like, oh, what if I mill it? I mean, at that point it's still a blank mill, right? It's what are we gonna be doing?
It was gonna be an Avarice anyway.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or what's it gonna be just worse cards, right? Because
Not
this deck
actually in this build.
No, this build only has good cards in it. That's why what's funny is because I actually cut this card the other day for some of the worst cards, like Necro Gardna and Wolf, Foolish Burial, which ideally are some of the better cards in the other version of the deck. But however, that's also the worst version of the deck, so this is just like I mentioned, this is gonna be a deck I would take confidently to a tournament, and this card I would definitely play 3 copies of, just to get you ahead, because this card versus the control decks you're gonna win, but when you're playing versus the speedier decks, that's when this card's gonna really come to shine, because a lot of my friends are on the Value Turbo deck. And I really need these cards in hand to help get the bigger beckoning resolves, to help make sure I have my orange lights, to draw into Gores sometimes too. Or you can be sneaky where you have it set and you have Gores, they swing and you're like, haha, chain, bring out Gores, drew 2 cards. That's an old age-old combo, but that's just a couple reasons. Next extra deck's not much changed. There is an actual change that I'll explain. Which is not too big, but we have this traditional arm, like Monster, Caster, Magical Android, Brionic, Goyle Guardian. These guys are great. Next, we have Flameville Requisis. I was playing Tempest Magician. I mentioned that the card has the option to do the burn. That never comes up, but what does come up a lot is Piercing, actually. where you don't have to go out of your way to pitch cards and like you getting free damage off of this. I'm gonna take the opportunities when people snooze like that, because like I'm gonna be like in this, you know, people for some reason they snooze a lot in this format. They summon small monsters and attack with them, and they leave small things in defense mode face up, like, you know, and take advantage of people. And they do this because you can catch them like where they're like, oh, I'm at 3k or something, which is kind of fair range, where, you know what I mean, where it's like, oh, I have monsters out, might not die, you will die still. That's my thing though. This card broken. This card awesome. You couldn't make that in the last list, but in this one you can make it. So this card, it's not in English, but what this does, which I know I didn't explain in the last video, is this card's gonna gain the difference in attack points that yours are greater. So if they have 1,000 life points and you're at 2,000, it gains 1,000 attack points, right? But it also loses the difference. So I'm sure that would give you an explanation enough. And then when this card's also destroyed by battle, though, you could pay 1,000 to recur it. So that card actually versus Black Wings is actually pretty important. If you didn't notice, it's also 2,000 defense. So being able to have the recurable body versus Black Wings sometimes when you need to stall, as well as it being a light and a fairy monster for Krystia, is also a bit relevant too sometimes when you do need to help kind of get yourself there. And then this card also like helps you kill people. Like this card plus like where I'd actually do it a bit frequently, where this combo alone, you go like Hamster, Flip, Raikou, you play Celestia combo in like in some way. You'll go Tribute for Celestia, mill 4. Plague, you get the idea, bring this guy out. Celestia now, or Archer or Krystia now. A Krystia attack directly for 28, they can't do anything. Now he's gaining 28 attack with one more, it's almost game, I think. Yeah. So like any other damage before that, like now you that plus your Hamster, right? That's game. Yep. So this guy, which is like just a kind of a brain control target. Yeah. For mainly. This guy, he's good. Parshath, I like this card a lot. He's just kind of yeah, you know, like, you know, in this format, take advantage of the cards that, you know, other decks can't make. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these, like, which is cool about this format I like, is there's, like, these decks have flavors, you know? Like, there's Dark End Dragon, only dark decks can make him. There's a couple Earth monsters I know, like, Sabers can't make. This happens to be a card that pierces, that Light Fairies can make. So I'm going to take advantage of those cards that my engine can make. There's, like, for example, this guy, Light End Dragon. He's not as good as Dark End Dragon, but what he can do is he can attack over, Judgment Dragon and some of these other stupid cards. They're just beefy. And then him plus like Honest is like super lethal. Colossal Fighter. These guys are a bit more of the stable cards. Thought Ruler, Archfiend, of course. Miss Worm. He's one of the main targets as well. The level 6s, like I said. And then just a token here. And then next we have the everyone's so important side deck, which is like, you know, having a proper side deck for this format is very important. Which I think everyone's already on to 3 of this card. Yeah. Which is, you know, just great. I mean, gotta have it. You know, I'm not gonna waste too much time, I know, on some of these cards. This card is good. I actually have been contemplating taking this card out, to be honest with you. This is a great card, but this card is just a little bit different in this deck, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's because this card takes up a normal summon, and although you can add it back with Krystia does do the same thing. It's a little bit different in the other deck because you can float into this with Shining Angel or the other thing now. And then I notice, yeah, exactly. And one thing I'm very particular of is the amount of fairies I'm playing in my main deck. And when you start to take something, change them around and put more in, I noticed that it doesn't keep your Krystia alive as much. You know what I mean? Although it's a very minor amount of fairies, like they want you mill at the rate which you mill. And versus the amount of, you know, all those statistics, it factors in this deck, you know. So you want to have the right amount of fairies in your deck and mill at the right speed to make sure you secure, like, getting Krystia consistently. Yeah. So, like, and this kind of actually was messing me up sometimes. Although it is very strong and, like, you know, having this normal summon with Royal Decree, backing up versus Black Wings is like an auto win. You know, they can't do anything. Next, we have just the back row removal cards. These cards are awesome. Staples. Yeah, absolutely. I love this card, honestly. I wish I could main this card, which I can't because it does conflict with the way I'm playing my deck at the moment. But I just feel like this is a card that Lightsworn can take advantage of and Gladiator Beast can take advantage of. And it's like for the fact that, yeah, they can't activate back row, but I like locking them out of their spawn traps because it's like Lightsworn have very strong monsters, to be honest with you. And when you start to take out, like, you know, like my monster engine, like of like Celestias and Judgment Dragons and stuff, like versus like other people's monster engines, and you take out the spawn trap factors, I'm pretty much gonna win in those cases, you know. So this is kind of just, I know, cold wave, but double decree. I mean, this card's pretty much like a side deck staple. You just pretty much always can slide this card in. It's insane, especially like I said with the monster cards. They're like consecrated light. Double shadow imprisoning. This card, of course, is just broken. You have to have this card, honestly, because then they have like royal oppression up and stuff like that. It doesn't stop value. You gotta have stuff that stops value, and like having stuff like DD Crow is good and all, but you have to stop them in like multiple ways. You know, you can't just rely on one card.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, actually like kind of like you have to have like a combination of cards in a way to kind of mess them up, you know, because they're gonna have multiple avenues. They might have like maliciouses or like plague spreader zombies or you know, other extending cards, and so that's where like the one DD Crow alone is not gonna stop it, especially versus good players where they're gonna be like, all right, cool, DD Crow. Well, guess what? Just like it's done, but just pitch another dark arm to like, you know, keep going. Just easy, like it's easy. This card also stops Dark Arm Dragon, which is nice, you know, where they don't pop your stuff, because that card, when it comes out and it pops your stuff, your back row or Dark End Dragon, now they have to battle your monsters now. Right. That's pretty important too. So keep that in mind when they try to pop your monsters. You know, you can flip this. That DD Crow doesn't stop them from popping your stuff with Dark Arm, like Dark Arm and Dark End does. So that being said, we have to get on to the next card of like pulling the rug, this is just another card. This card to me is a staple. I'm maxing on a lot of the cards in the side deck because this deck mills, so you have to kind of see, you know, obviously I would like to fit cards like Dust Shield because, you know, that card's a blowout card. It's just finding space for some of these cards versus cards I know that are going to be effective all the time and like allow me to win consistently. I try to max on those cards. Obviously this one just stops, makes sure your set monsters resolve, which is important for this version of the deck, as well as just stopping the frog deck and any deck that normal summons and triggers an effect. So that is the side deck there, you guys. And I appreciate you guys watching the video. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So please come take a look at the locals that we have going in here in Chicago at Emporium TCG. We're going to have a link into our Facebook group, which is Yu-Gi-Oh! Chicago, which you guys should all follow. We're going to be posting events in there, as well as content for my channel, as well as I want you guys to like, comment, subscribe to this video, because I'm going to be posting more content too.
And check out the previous two videos, because both are pretty good.
Absolutely. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate you guys watching.
Thank you.
Bye.